German commanders mocked D-Day landings, until 7,000 Allied ships overwhelmed their beaches. June 5, 1944. 2200 hours. Château de la Roche-Guyon, Normandy, France. Field Marshal Erwin Rommel stands at the window of his headquarters, watching rain hammer the glass. The storm is biblical, wind howling off the English Channel, visibility near zero. Behind him, his staff officers study weather reports with the intensity of priests reading scripture. "They will not come in this weather," Rommel says, not bothering to turn around. His voice carries absolute certainty. No amphibious operation can succeed in these conditions. He's earned the right to that confidence. The Desert Fox, the man who nearly drove the British into the Mediterranean. He spent 18 months fortifying this coastline, turning it into the most formidable defensive position in human history. 6 million mines, 500,000 obstacles. Concrete and steel stretched across 1,670 miles. The meteorological report confirms, Herr Feldmarschall, says Major Wilhelm Meyer, his meteorologist. Winds at 30 kilometers per hour, waves at 1.5 meters. No invasion force could land in these seas. Rommel finally turns. He's 52, face weathered like old leather, eyes that have seen too much. And the tide schedule? Low tide at 05:25 hours tomorrow, high tide at 1200 hours. Eisenhower's doctrine requires landing at low tide to expose our obstacles. With this weather continuing through the week, the window closes. The logic is flawless. The Allies need 3 things to invade: calm seas, proper tide, and moonlight for paratroopers. The weather has eliminated all 3. Elementary mathematics. Rommel makes a decision that will haunt military academies for decades. "Otit, I'm going to Germany," he announces. "My wife's birthday is tomorrow. I'll be back in 3 days." His staff exchanges glances but says nothing. If the Desert Fox believes invasion is impossible, who are they to argue? "Wake me if conditions change," Rommel adds, already thinking about the drive to Herrlingen, the party, the brief escape from this endless waiting. He doesn't know that 110 miles across the Channel, Supreme Commander Dwight Eisenhower is staring at the exact same weather reports and making the opposite decision. What Field Marshal Rommel didn't know was that at that exact moment, 5,333 ships were already at sea, carrying 156,000 men toward his beaches. And the man commanding them had just bet the entire war on a 24-hour break in a storm that meteorologists said would last a week. June 5, 1944. 0415 hours, Southwick House, Portsmouth, England. Captain James Stagg stands before the most powerful military leaders in the world, and he's terrified. He's a meteorologist, 43 years old, Scottish. Before the war, he studied cloud formations and wrote papers nobody read. Now he's responsible for predicting whether 150,000 men will live or die. The room smells like cigarette smoke and damp wool. Eisenhower sits at the head of the table, face carved from granite. Behind him, Admiral Bertram Ramsay, Air Chief Marshal Arthur Tedder, General Bernard Montgomery. Between them, they command 2.8 million men and the industrial output of 2 continents. And they're all staring at Stagg. "Captain," Eisenhower says quietly, "I need to know if this weather will break." Stagg's hands are shaking. He's clutching weather charts covered in isobars and pressure systems. 3 different meteorological teams have given him 3 different forecasts. The British team says the storm continues for 5 days. The American team says 3 days. His own analysis says something else entirely. Something insane. "General," Stagg begins, his Scottish accent thickening under stress, "there's a gap." A gap? In the weather system, a high-pressure front moving faster than predicted. It should arrive over the channel at approximately 0300 hours on the 6th. Duration, 36 hours. Wind will drop to 18 kilometers per hour. Waves to 1 meter. Silence. Tedder lights another cigarette. Montgomery studies the map like it personally offended him. "Should?" Eisenhower repeats. "Captain, I need better than should." September. Stagg wants to explain the complexity. How Atlantic weather systems are chaos incarnate. How a butterfly in Newfoundland can spawn a hurricane in Cornwall. But these men don't want lectures. They want certainty. "I'm as certain as I can be, sir," which is to say, not very. It's the most honest answer in military history, and the worst possible thing to say. Eisenhower stands, walks to the window. Outside, rain lashes the glass. Trees bend like they're trying to touch the ground. This is the weather Stagg is claiming will break in 12 hours. "If we launch and the weather doesn't improve," Eisenhower says slowly, "we'll lose thousands before they reach the beach. If we delay again, we miss the tide window. We'd have to postpone 2 weeks. By then, the Germans will know we're coming." "Yes, sir." "And if we postpone 2 weeks, and the weather is perfect, I'll have to explain to Stalin why we didn't invade when we could have." Stagg says nothing. The politics are above his pay grade. He's just the weatherman delivering impossible news. What nobody in the room knows is that Stagg's forecast is based on data from a single weather ship, HMS Grimsey, stationed 300 miles into the Atlantic. One ship, one set of measurements. The entire invasion, the liberation of Europe, the fate of millions, is resting on temperature readings from a converted fishing trawler. Eisenhower turns back to the room. "Gentlemen, I need to make a decision in 6 hours. Give me everything: fuel consumption, troop readiness, naval positioning, and Captain Stagg." "Sir, I hope to God you're right." 0500 hours, the decision point. The commanders reconvene. Stagg presents updated data. The high-pressure system is tracking perfectly. The gap is real, probably. "Percentage certainty?" Eisenhower asks. 70%, sir." 30% chance of catastrophe. Would you board a plane with those odds? But here's what changes everything. The Germans are using the same weather data. They're looking at the same storm. And they're reaching the opposite conclusion because they don't have HMS Grimsey. They don't have that Atlantic data. They're forecasting based on weather stations in France and Germany, watching the storm overhead and assuming it continues. Same data, different sources, opposite conclusions. Eisenhower paces. He's chain-smoking. In 16 hours, men will be dying on beaches whose names will echo through history. Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juno, Sword. He's the one sending them. "The question is," Montgomery says, breaking the silence, "do we trust the weathermen or do we trust our eyes?" Everyone looks outside. The storm hasn't weakened. If anything, it's worse. Eisenhower makes the decision at 0515 hours. We go. 2 words. The largest amphibious invasion in human history, launched on the word of a Scottish meteorologist who's 70% sure. Across the channel, in coastal bunkers and observation posts, German soldiers watch the same storm and relax. Obergefreiter Franz Gockel, manning a machine gun position at WN 62 overlooking Omaha Beach, writes a letter to his wife. "Nothing will happen today. he writes. "The weather is too bad. Maybe I'll get some sleep." At Point du Hoc, Oberleutnant Werner von Kostowski inspects his 6 155 mm guns. These weapons can hit ships 12 miles out. They're positioned perfectly, registered on every approach lane. But today, he gives his men shore leave. "Go to Carrington," he tells them. "Find some wine. The invasion isn't coming in this weather." At Sword Beach, Private Klaus Hertel celebrates his 19th birthday. His commanding officer gives him a bottle of cognac. "Drink it now," the officer jokes. "Tomorrow we might be busy." See, they drink the cognac. All of it. Up and down the Normandy coast, German units stand down. Not completely. Rommel's training won't allow that, but they relax. The tension that's been building for weeks eases. The weather, they believe, is their ally. What they don't know is that 110 miles away, in darkness and storm, the largest invasion fleet ever assembled is already moving. 5,333 ships, 11,590 aircraft, 156,000 men. And they're coming whether the weather approves or not. The Allied deception for D-Day isn't just about hiding the invasion. It's about making the Germans see an invasion somewhere else. Operation Fortitude is the most elaborate con in military history. Here's what it involves: fake armies. Real generals commanding divisions that don't exist. George Patton, the general Germans fear most, is visibly stationed in Kent, opposite Pas-de-Calais. His 1st United States Army Group consists of inflatable tanks, plywood landing craft, and radio operators broadcasting fake communications. The Germans intercept these transmissions. They photograph the fake tanks from reconnaissance aircraft. They watch Patton give speeches to troops that aren't there. And they conclude the obvious. Patton will lead the main invasion at Calais, the shortest route to Germany. Normandy? That's obviously a diversion. The deception is so complete that even after D-Day begins, German High Command believes Normandy is a feint. The real invasion, they're certain, is still coming at Calais. But the deception isn't the only advantage. The real secret weapon is logistics. Admiral Bertram Ramsay has solved a problem nobody thought was solvable. How do you supply 150,000 men landing on beaches with no ports? Answer: you bring your own ports. The Mulberry Harbors are floating docks, massive steel structures that will be towed across the channel and sunk off the Normandy coast. Each harbor is the size of Dover. Construction has taken 45,000 workers and consumed 600,000 tons of concrete. The Germans know they're being built. Reconnaissance has photographed them, but German intelligence concludes they're for a post-invasion phase after ports are captured. Nobody believes you can deploy them during the initial assault. They're wrong. And then there's Pluto, pipeline under the ocean. Engineers have laid a fuel pipeline across the channel floor. It will pump 1 million gallons per day directly to the invasion beaches. The Germans don't even know it exists. But the real advantage, the thing that will overwhelm Rommel's defenses, is something simpler. Numbers. The Atlantic Wall is impressive. 6 million mines. Rommel has personally designed beach obstacles, steel hedgehogs, Belgian gates, logs tipped with mines. At low tide, these obstacles will rip the bottoms out of landing craft. But there's a problem with static defense. It can only be in one place at a time. Rommel has 50 divisions to defend 1,670 miles of coastline. That's 33 miles per division. Spread that thin, you're defending everything and nothing. The Allies are concentrating 47 divisions on a 50-mile stretch of Normandy Beach. At the point of contact, they'll outnumber the defenders 15-1. Rommel knows this is the weakness. He's begged Hitler for permission to move panzer divisions closer to the coast. We must defeat them on the beaches, he's argued. Give them an inch inland, and their material superiority will crush us. Hitler refuses. The panzers stay inland, held in reserve, because High Command still believes Calais is the target. June 5, 1944. 2100 hours. English Channel. Seaman Harold Baumgarten stands at the rail of the USS Samuel Chase, throwing up into the darkness. The ship is rolling in 8-foot swells. Around him, other men are doing the same. The smell is indescribable. Vomit, diesel fuel, sweat, fear. This is insane, someone says. We're going to drown before we see the beach. Baumgarten is 19 years old. From the Bronx, Jewish. He carries a Star of David in his pocket and a picture of his girlfriend. In 12 hours, he'll land on Omaha Beach with Company B, 116th Infantry Regiment. But right now, he's just trying not to die of seasickness. Below deck, the landing craft are stacked like coffins. Higgins boats, plywood, and steel, designed to carry 36 men to the beach and drop them in chest-deep water. The boats have no armor. A rifle bullet can punch through the sides. "Hey, Baumgarten," says Sergeant Bob Slaughter, a combat veteran who landed in North Africa. "You know what the worst part is?" "What?" "The waiting. Once we hit the beach, you'll be too busy to be scared." It's a lie, and both men know it. But it's a kind lie. Across the fleet, similar conversations are happening in a dozen languages. British paratroopers from the 6th Airborne Division checking their parachutes for the 5th time. Canadian infantry from the Regina Rifles writing last letters home. American Rangers rehearsing the climb. They'll make up Point du Hoc's 100-foot cliffs while under fire. None of them know if the weather will break. They can feel the ship heaving under them, hear the wind screaming across the deck. This is the weather they're supposed to invade in. At 2300 hours, Captain Stagg's forecast proves accurate. The wind begins to drop, slowly at first, then faster. By midnight, the swells have decreased to 6 feet, then 4. The weather gap is real. But here's what's terrifying. The gap is narrow. They have 36 hours. After that, the storm returns. If the invasion doesn't secure the beaches in that window, it will fail. There's no backup plan, no second chance. This is it. June 6, 1944, 0016 hours. The first Allied soldiers land in France. They're not on beaches, they're falling from the sky. Operation Tonga, the British airborne assault, begins with 6 horse gliders crash landing beside the Caen Canal. Their objective? Capture 2 bridges before German engineers can destroy them. The bridges are designated Ham and Jam, but history will call them by a different name: Pegasus Bridge. Major John Howard leads D Company, Oxfordshire and Buckinghamshire. Light infantry. His glider hits the ground at 95 miles per hour, skids 200 yards, and stops 47 yards from the objective. Perfect. Howard kicks open the door. "Come on, lads, we've got a bridge to take." They sprint across the approach. The German guards are asleep, literally asleep, because nobody expected an attack in this weather. The British are across the bridge before the Germans realize they're under attack. The entire assault takes 10 minutes. 2 British casualties. The first objective of D-Day is secure before most Germans know the invasion has started. But 15 miles away, the American airborne drop is going terribly wrong. The 101st and 82nd Airborne Divisions are supposed to land in tight drop zones behind Utah Beach. Instead, because of clouds, darkness, and anti-aircraft fire, pilots scatter paratroopers across 25 miles of Norman countryside. Private John Steele of the 505th Parachute Infantry lands on the church steeple in Sainte-Mère-Église. His parachute catches. He hangs there, playing dead, while Germans shoot paratroopers in the streets below. He'll hang for 2 hours before being captured. Lieutenant Dick Winters of Easy Company, 506th PIR, lands in a flooded field. The Germans have deliberately flooded the lowlands behind Utah Beach. Paratroopers weighted with 80 pounds of gear drop into water over their heads. Some drown before they can cut their chutes. Winters hears men screaming in the darkness, thrashing in water, unable to save themselves. It's chaos, complete, total chaos. But here's the thing about chaos. It works both ways. The scattered drop confuses the Germans even more than it confuses the Americans. Reports flood German command posts, paratroopers at Sainte-Mère-Église, at Carentan, at Chef Dupont, everywhere. German commanders think they're facing 3 airborne divisions when it's really just one badly scattered. By 0200 hours, small groups of American paratroopers are coalescing in the darkness. They find each other using crickets, little metal clickers that make a distinctive sound. Click-clack, click-clack. The sound of Americans finding Americans in the dark. Lieutenant Winters assembles 12 men out of his 140 soldier company. They're supposed to secure causeway exits from Utah Beach. Instead, they stumble onto a German battery position at Brecourt Manor. 4 105 mm guns that can devastate Utah Beach. Winters has 12 men. The Germans have 50. Standard doctrine says you need 3-to-1 advantage to attack a fortified position. Winters is outnumbered 4-to-1. He attacks anyway. Using fire and maneuver tactics, moving between hedgerows, Winters' tiny force destroys all 4 guns in 2 hours. Cost? 1 American dead, 2 wounded. German casualties? 15 dead, 12 captured, the rest scattered. It's a tiny action in the scope of the invasion, but those 4 guns would have fired directly into landing craft at Utah Beach. Winters just saved hundreds of lives, and he doesn't even know it yet. Up and down the invasion coast, similar small actions are playing out. Paratroopers cutting phone lines, blowing up bridges, ambushing German patrols. None of it is going according to plan, but all of it is creating chaos in the German rear. And chaos, it turns out, is a weapon. June 6, 1944, 0550 hours, WN 62, Omaha Beach. Obergefreiter. Franz Guckel is drinking coffee when he hears the sound. It starts as a rumble, low and distant. Thunder, maybe, but it's getting louder, closer, and it's not stopping. He steps out of his bunker into pre-dawn darkness. The sound is coming from the sea. He looks out over the beach, down to the waterline 400 yards away. The English Channel is full of ships. Mein Gott, someone whispers. It's not an accurate description. It's an understatement. The horizon is black with ships. Destroyers, cruisers, battleships, transports. They stretch from one end of vision to the other. A solid line of steel extending beyond what the eye can see. Guckel has been told to expect an invasion. He's been trained for this moment. But nothing, no training, no briefing, no war game, prepared him for this. "Sound the alarm!" someone is shouting. "Sound the alarm!" The alert goes out. Up and down the beach, German soldiers stumble from bunkers and fighting positions, stare at the armada, and feel something they haven't felt in years: genuine fear. At 0550 hours, the naval bombardment begins. The battleship USS Texas fires her 14-inch guns. Each shell weighs 1,500 pounds. The sound is apocalyptic, a physical force that punches the air from your lungs. The shells scream overhead and detonate on German positions with explosions that create craters 20 feet deep. HMS Warspite adds her 15-inch guns. USS Arkansas with 12-inch. Destroyer after destroyer with 5-inch rapid fire. The bombardment is supposed to last 40 minutes. It's meant to destroy the German defenses, eliminate the bunkers, clear the way for the landing troops. It doesn't work. Rommel's bunkers are too strong. The concrete is reinforced, the positions too well designed. Naval shells bounce off or detonate harmlessly on the surface. Inside the bunkers, German soldiers are terrified but alive. Their weapons are intact. Their ammunition is plentiful. And they have perfect fields of fire over the beach. At 0630 hours, the bombardment lifts. The landing craft begin their run to shore. In landing craft, H-47, headed for Omaha Beach, Seaman Harold Baumgarten crouches with Company B, 116th Infantry. The ramp is up. Through gaps in the steel, he can see the beach approaching. It looks peaceful. White sand, gentle slope, cliffs in the distance. The ramp drops. The universe becomes violence. Machine gun fire rips across the landing craft. Men fall. Water sprays red. The soldier in front of Baumgarten takes a round through the throat. He gurgles, clutches at the wound, collapses. "Out! Get out!" someone screams. Baumgarten jumps into water over his head. His 70 pounds of equipment drags him down. He kicks, fights, surfaces. Around him, men are drowning, sinking under the weight of their gear. Others are hit by machine gun fire and disappear beneath the surface. He makes it to shallow water, starts wading. The beach is 200 yards away. It might as well be 200 miles. The Germans have enfilading fire, machine guns positioned to rake the beach lengthwise. Every step is through a curtain of bullets. Men are falling everywhere. Some make it to the seawall and take cover. Most don't. Most die in the water or on the sand, cut down before they've advanced 10 yards. Baumgarten makes it to the shingle, a mound of stones at the high water mark. He dives behind it, gasping. Next to him, a soldier is crying, clutching his rifle. Another man is praying in Spanish. This is Omaha Beach, and it's not going well. 4 miles east, at Utah Beach, the situation is completely different. The landing craft have drifted 2,000 yards south of their intended zone. It's a navigational error. By rights, it should be a disaster. Instead, it's a miracle. The planned landing zone was heavily defended. The actual landing zone has lighter defenses, fewer obstacles, and, critically, the exits are less mined. The 4th Infantry Division lands with minimal casualties, pushes inland, links up with the scattered paratroopers. Brigadier General Theodore Roosevelt, Jr., son of the President, 56 years old, walking with a cane because of arthritis, is the only general officer to land with the first wave. He walks up and down the beach, under fire, completely calm, directing traffic like he's managing a traffic jam. "We'll start the war from here," he shouts, and starts organizing the push inland. Utah Beach will be secure by noon. Casualties, 197 men. Compared to the 2,400 casualties at Omaha, it's a miracle. But Utah's success and Omaha's nightmare aren't the only story. At Gold, Juno, and Sword beaches, the British and Canadian sectors, the landings are succeeding, but at high cost. At Juno, the Regina Rifles lose half their men in the first wave, but they push off the beach, get into the dunes, and start eliminating German positions with grenades and bayonets. At Sword, commandos under Lord Lovett land to the sound of bagpipes. His personal piper, Bill Millen, walks up the beach playing Highland Laddie while bullets snap around him. It's insane. It's magnificent. It's exactly the kind of defiant madness that epitomizes the invasion. But back at Omaha, the invasion is failing. By 0800 hours, the beach is clogged with immobilized men, burning vehicles, and chaos. Entire units have been wiped out. Commanders are dead. Communication is non-existent. The seawall is packed with soldiers who can't advance and won't retreat, pinned down by machine gun fire from the cliffs above. In his bunker at WN-62, Obergefreiter Gockel watches through a gun slit. His MG-42 machine gun, capable of 1,200 rounds per minute, has been firing almost continuously. The barrel is glowing red. The beach below is carpeted with American dead. "We're stopping them," his gunner says, almost awed. "We're actually stopping them." For a brief moment, it looks like Rommel's promise is coming true. Defeat them on the beaches. Hold them at the waterline. If Omaha fails, the entire invasion fails. The beaches won't link up. The lodgment will be vulnerable to counterattack. But then something changes. Small groups start moving. Not whole units. Those have been destroyed. Just small groups. A sergeant and 3 privates. A lieutenant and 5 survivors. They stop trying to move as a unit and start improvising. Bangalore torpedoes. Explosives designed to clear barbed wire are used to blow gaps in the obstacles. Men sprint through the gaps, get to the base of the cliffs where the German guns can't depress low enough to hit them. Irritated, destroyers move to within 800 yards of shore, dangerously close, and start direct fire support. The destroyer USS McCook fires 975 rounds from her 5-inch guns, systematically eliminating German positions. And then the Rangers arrive at Point du Hoc. This is the mission everyone said was suicide. Scale 100-foot cliffs while under fire. Capture 6 155 mm guns that can destroy the invasion fleet. The Rangers practice for months, train on cliffs in England, plan every detail. They arrive 40 minutes late. The landing craft were swamped, and discover the cliffs are even taller than reconnaissance photos showed. The Germans are throwing grenades down. Machine gun fire is ripping the ropes apart. The Rangers climb anyway. Lieutenant Colonel James Rudder, commanding, is hit by shrapnel. He wraps a bandage around his leg and keeps climbing. His men follow. They reach the top, fight through trenches, get to the gun positions, and discover, the guns aren't there. They've been moved inland, hidden in an orchard 500 yards away. The Rangers find them anyway. Sergeant Leonard Lommel and the Staff Sergeant Jack Kuhn sneak through German lines, reach the guns, and destroy them with thermite grenades. Mission accomplished. Cost: 135 Rangers landed. 90 become casualties. But they hold the point for 2 days against counterattacks, and those 6 guns never fire on the fleet. By 1200 hours, Omaha is slowly, painfully being secured. Not according to plan, not with the elegance of a staff college exercise, but secured nonetheless. And in Germany, Field Marshal Rommel is just getting word that something is happening in Normandy. June 6, 1944, 10:15 hours, Erlangen, Germany. The phone call reaches Rommel at his home. He's been there since 0700 hours, having driven through the night. His wife's birthday party is in 3 hours. "Herr Feldmarschall," the voice says, tight with stress, "there are reports of airborne landings in Normandy." Rommel grips the phone. Strength? Unknown, multiple drop zones. The reports are confused. And the weather? Improving. Rommel closes his eyes. The weather. The variable he trusted. The variable that betrayed him. "I'm returning immediately," he says. The drive back takes 7 hours. 7 hours while 156,000 Allied soldiers establish a foothold on his beaches. 7 hours while the entire carefully constructed defense crumbles. He arrives at his headquarters at 1800 hours and immediately demands a situation report. What he hears destroys him. The invasion has landed on 5 beaches. Air superiority is absolute. The Luftwaffe has managed 319 sorties all day against 14,674 Allied sorties. The naval bombardment continues, systematically eliminating coastal defenses. And the panzer divisions, the mobile reserve that could counterattack and drive the Allies back into the sea, are still inland, waiting for Hitler's personal authorization to move. "What? Contact the Führer," Rommel orders. "We need those panzers now." "We have been trying, Herr Feldmarschall. The Führer is asleep. His staff refuses to wake him." It's true. Hitler, convinced that Normandy is a feint and that the real invasion is still coming at Calais, has gone to bed. His standing orders are that he's not to be disturbed. So while the largest invasion in history unfolds, the one man who can authorize the panzer counterattack is asleep in Bavaria. He won't be woken until 1400 hours. By then, the beaches are secure. The window for an immediate counterattack has closed. Rommel stares at the map. Red arrows show Allied penetrations. 6 miles deep at Gold Beach, 4 miles at Juno, 9 miles at Sword. Utah has linked with the airborne. Only Omaha remains shallow. And even there, the Americans are pushing inland. "This is a catastrophe," Rommel says quietly. His chief of staff, General Hans Speidel, says nothing. What is there to say? The perfect defense has failed. Not because the fortifications were weak. They were magnificent. Not because the troops fought poorly. They fought magnificently, especially at Omaha. The defense failed because it was designed to stop an invasion that came in perfect conditions. When the Allies came in imperfect conditions, accepting risk that the Germans thought was unacceptable, the entire calculation collapsed. 156,000 Allied soldiers ashore across 5 beaches. Casualties, approximately 10,000 dead, wounded, or missing. German casualties, estimated 4,000 to 9,000. The Allies have established a lodgment 24 miles wide and 6 miles deep. It's not as deep as planned. They were supposed to capture Cannes on D-Day, and they won't take it for 6 weeks. But it's enough. The foothold is secure. More importantly, the logistics are working. The Mulberry harbors are being towed into position. Pluto is operational. Supply ships are unloading directly onto the beaches. By D+1, the Allies will land another 100,000 men. By D+7, they'll have 326,000 men and 54,000 vehicles ashore. The Atlantic Wall, the impregnable fortress, has been breached in a single day. In the weeks that follow, German commanders conduct after-action analysis. The reports are damning. General Gunther Blumentritt writes, "The Allied invasion succeeded because we misunderstood their tolerance for risk. We believed they would not attack in adverse weather. We believed they would not land without capturing a port first. We believed they would not sacrifice landing craft to beach obstacles. We were wrong on every count. Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt, Commander-in-Chief West, is more blunt. We lost because we prepared for the invasion we would have launched, not the invasion they actually launched. But the most devastating assessment comes from Rommel himself, in a letter to his wife written on June 12th. The enemy's air superiority is crushing. We are powerless. When I see the endless columns of Allied vehicles advancing inland without interference, I know we have lost. Not this battle, the war. It is only a matter of time now. He's right. The lodgment in Normandy will become a breakout. The breakout will become a race across France. Paris will fall in August. By May 1945, Germany will surrender. All because Eisenhower trusted a weatherman, and 156,000 men were willing to board ships in a storm that military logic said would prevent invasion. On Omaha Beach, Harold Baumgarten survives D-Day despite being wounded 5 times. He'll return to the Bronx, become a doctor, and spend 50 years giving talks about the invasion. In one talk, recorded in 1994, he says, "People ask what D-Day was like. They want to hear about the heroism, the bravery. And yes, there was that. But mostly what I remember is confusion. Nothing went according to plan. We landed in the wrong places, at the wrong times. Units were scattered. Communications failed. It was chaos." He pauses, remembering. But we won anyway, because when the plan failed, we didn't quit. We improvised. We adapted. We found a way. That's the lesson of D-Day. It's not about perfect planning. It's about refusing to fail, even when everything goes wrong. Today, on the cliffs above Omaha Beach, there's a cemetery. The American Battle Monuments Commission maintains 9,388 graves there. White crosses in perfect rows facing west toward home. Walk among those graves and you'll find men from every state. Farm boys from Iowa, factory workers from Detroit, kids from Brooklyn who'd never seen the ocean before they boarded a ship to cross it under fire. What united them wasn't military genius. It wasn't perfect planning. It wasn't even superior equipment. The Sherman tank was inferior to German armor. The M1 Garand was good, but not revolutionary. The landing craft were plywood boxes. What united them was willingness. Willingness to attempt the impossible, a willingness to attack in weather that military wisdom said was impossible. Willingness to climb cliffs under fire, to wade through water while carrying 70 pounds of gear, to charge machine gun nests with nothing but rifles and grenades. The Germans had the better defensive position. They had months to prepare. They had the Atlantic Wall, the mines, the obstacles, the bunkers. They had Field Marshal Erwin Rommel, one of the finest military minds of the war. But they didn't have the willingness to attempt the impossible. When the weather was bad, Rommel went home. When the weather was bad, Eisenhower attacked. That's the difference. That's what 7,000 ships and 156,000 men represented. Not just military might, but the audacity to use it when conditions were terrible. There's a famous photograph from D-Day. It shows the view from a German bunker at WN-62, overlooking Omaha Beach. You can see the entire killing zone, the beach, the obstacles, the water. Perfect fields of fire. A defensive position that should have been impregnable. But if you look closely at the photograph, you can see something else. Landing craft still coming in. Even at 1,000 hours, after hundreds of men have died on that beach, more landing craft keep coming. They don't stop. They don't turn back. They keep coming. That's the image that should haunt military academies. Not the perfect fortifications, not the mathematical calculations of ground pressure and tidal schedules, but the simple, stubborn refusal to accept the word impossible. Rommel calculated that tanks couldn't operate on soft sand. Sergeant Kowalski proved him wrong at Tarawa. Rommel calculated that landing craft couldn't breach the Atlantic Wall in bad weather. Captain Stagg bet otherwise. Rommel calculated that 50 divisions could hold 1,670 miles of coastline. The Allies concentrated 47 divisions on 50 miles and proved that concentration beats distribution. All of Rommel's calculations were mathematically sound. His logic was flawless. His reasoning was impeccable. But he forgot that war isn't mathematics, it's will. And when will meets calculation, will usually wins. June 5, 1944, 2200 hours. We opened with Field Marshal Rommel, standing at his window, watching the storm, absolutely certain that invasion was impossible in these conditions. "They will not come in this weather," he said. "No amphibious operation can succeed in these conditions.